Hey guys, it's October, which means it's Chaintober. It's Leatherface-tober on the Bomb Squad as we finish finally the Texas Chainsaw Month. Oh wait, we have one more episode. We're almost done with the Texas Chainsaw Month.
I will.
But
I
this is
will
the
say
last
ahead of
movie.
time, if this was definitely a get up and make food, but let the movie keep playing type movie, you're like, you know
I'm gonna
what? I'll
I'm
get the
gonna be like,
gist.
wait, his name is Leatherface. So yeah, we're reviewing Leatherface from 2017, the last released Texas Chainsaw movie, and a prequel to the original Texas Chainsaw, and also it's for some reason in continuity with 3D. And they're like, this character's name is the dad of this other character's like, I don't remember any characters from 3D
Yeah,
except
it
for
is because
Cuz.
this is just called Leatherface, but there was Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and this is also the second prequel, but not of the remake. Like
Yeah,
it's
this
a
is the
mess.
second prequel, but of the original continuity. This is also the third continuity of the series. And so also like there's a hilarious twist, but I'll get that's like the first thing I'm gonna do. So spoilers abound. Josh, tell us what this movie is about. But
Um,
don't mention Texas because this movie clearly didn't take place in Texas.
this movie, this is a movie of Leatherface tagging along with an unrelated group of teens as they have like a murder
Yeah.
adventure and just kind of shrugging a lot. Like
If you
he
thought
he is
that every
barely in this.
there's like a twist in this movie because there's like a slow huge guy who's like really big but he's like really young and he's like kind of slow or mentally disabled, and the whole movie they're like, could this be Leatherface? But the very first scene shows who Leatherface is, and he's like a skinny little kid. So you have two choices: the skinny little kid who keeps talking and is the main character, or a random other guy who has like two scenes and doesn't show up till 45 minutes into the movie. I wonder who it is. What a weird twist. It's the fucking skinny kid. Thanks, movie. What a dumb twist. I hate it. Okay. So
Yeah,
let's get into it.
it's
Does start in a good way. Like I kind of did enjoy the beginning because it's like it's a Sawyer birthday party. And then like they're singing happy birthday and the kid blows out the candles and then they're like,
Drayton, where are your manners? Give the first piece to the thief.
yeah, he was a pig thief, and I actually that's the one thing I actually fully enjoyed about this movie is this is the only movie where you actually see them having like a flourishing farm business because they have a lot of pigs, and it's like, oh, this was the before times, but they still killed people for fun, you know?
well, it's also like in the other ones they worked at a meat packing in like
Yeah, and in this one
they
they
didn't
just
have their
kind
own
of have
farm.
a farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the
And
same. It doesn't work continuity wise, but I appreciate that they're well off. You know.
also in this one, since it's in the continuity of the other of the Texas Chainsaw 3D where he's a good guy, they can't have him eating people, but again it suffers from the same problem. Okay, so yeah, so then we show that scene that completely spoils the twist, and then like it cuts to like this girl and her boyfriend and they're down a road, and it's the most hilarious, like you I as soon as I saw these two characters, I knew that this was not made in America because the girl is in a little schoolgirl outfit, despite the fact that she's like 17 years old, and the guy has a varsity's jacket, and he's
Yeah,
like,
it's very well,
he's
and
like,
like
hey,
they
babe, we gotta get home because I have to do varsity football practice. And she's like, I know, I have cheerleading practice, but I'm a virgin, just in case you didn't know that. Other tropes.
they run into the road and there's like a kid wearing a pig's head, and then she's like, "Let me approach him," and it's kind of like, oh, everyone in a horror movie has to
Wait,
be kind of dumb, but this
a
is
pig's head? Wait, pig?
yeah.
Leather? On his face?
What?
It must be
Yeah, it
the big
was.
guy. It must be the big guy that hasn't
It's
shown
the
up yet.
unrelated guy we see later. Yeah, so the little kid is like just standing there with a pig's head that he's wearing, and the girl's like, let me approach this kid, and the kid's not even yelling for help or anything at this point. She's just like, you know
Yeah,
what, I'm not going to get back in the car. But then as she approaches him, he runs away and says, help. But it's like, this is such an obvious trap. But oh, okay, so she dies, right? Yeah, but this leads to the great scene of Sheriff Stephen Dorff showing up,
yeah.
and he's upset because his daughter was found
And he's
horribly
vaping up a
murdered.
storm. Yeah.
And one of the Sawyers is like, "You arrested me for finding a body? That ain't no crime I ever heard of." It's like, what do you? Of course it is. It's like
Yeah, and then
this
the
probable
mom,
cause.
yeah, the mom shows up and she's like, "You can't arrest them. You didn't see her be murdered." And it's like, first of all, we're in the middle of Texas. I can literally arrest anyone for anything.
the,
And second of
the
all,
idea, like you would walk into Leatherface's murder den and be like, "Well, I didn't see him kill these 40 people,
yeah,
so I guess he's free to go."
it's
Circumstantial evidence.
it's very like, oh, Donald Trump didn't do anything because he only talked a lot. It's like, yeah, that's literally the crime that we're charging him with.
Yeah.
Like if you go to your house and then they're like, you can't get away this time. It's like he's killed other people, and again, you you haven't like arrested him. What's happening in this world? So yeah, that's hilarious. And then I did like what happens afterwards because Sheriff Dorf is like,
Send some units over to the Sawyer house. You round up all the miners. I want all of them. You hear
can't
me?
do that. You can't do that.
Well, I'll have a warrant that says I can by the time we arrive. It's called child endangerment. You take one of mine, and I'll take all yours, Verna.
and I did like that aspect of like, yeah, that's the only way to hurt the Sawyers is to separate the family.
Right, and but they also, I mean, and they do this later. They don't do it right now because it's like you're on his side pretty much the whole movie. But later, you're supposed to be against him because you find it's like, oh, he sends lots of kids to this like asylum, orphanage, like
Yeah, they
bad
do this. They
kids.
do the same thing that they did in
The
3D where
last
they're
one,
like,
yeah.
yeah, maybe they might be eating people and torturing them, but this other guy, like, he's cheating on his insurance claims. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, yeah, and
This,
then you find out later because they're like, oh, he takes wayward, troubled kids and like beats them up and sends them here. But all the kids we meet who are at that asylum are murderers.
yeah, they're not
So
helping their case by showing how
it's
vicious
like a-
murderers everyone else is. Like maybe there's something wrong with this town. Is the more important thing.
yeah,
So yeah, so they
everybody
take him
said that.
away. Like the Sawyer family has always been a little bit shaky on exactly how much they care about other family members because sometimes they'll beat each other up and attack each other, but sometimes they're like, we're all in this together and you can't hurt each other, and it's like, I don't know about that. Sometimes you guys let each other get run over with cars.
Yeah,
Um,
it's whatever is called for in the scene, if not like the movie. Like there's not a lot of
yeah,
consistency.
yeah. So then we cut to 10 years later again for no reason. Um, and now I guess it's like apparently supposed to take place like just a few years before the original. It's like, how old is Leatherface supposed to be in that movie? I do
Yeah,
also like
I
how they're
never
like,
thought about it, but yeah, it doesn't
it,
really like work.
it's also like, okay, his name is Jed, and then they change it to Jackson or the other guy. I don't know who could it be. And then they change it to Jackson, and it's like we don't know what Leatherface's name is.
They should
They've
have
never
changed it
said it
to
before. Yeah,
they should have been like, oh, and your name is Larry F. Ace.
yeah.
just, just to throw you off the trail.
What if they were
Um,
like, I wanted the mom to be like, hey, I've come back to save my son. And they're like, and I've brought my other son, Choppington Toppington. He just
this
got
is
back from the Vietnam War. He's very,
See,
he's very.
this when they get to the hospital is where I started to give up because they introduce like a dozen characters and I'm like, there's no way these characters are gonna matter. Like, why are you giving them all this like
Yeah, because in the hospital
backstory?
we meet Jackson, we meet fake Leatherface, we meet two other people, like a girl and a guy, and then there's like
We
a
we
new
meet we
nurse.
meet oh, this is I didn't write down any of the names except the crazy girl who likes to kill people and sleep with them is named Clarice. So it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, her name's Clarice in the middle of Texas.
It's like, shut the fuck up. And then
Clarice,
there's
like,
there's a nurse. The only you meet like 20 characters at the hospital, but the other one that actually is involved in the story is the nurse who's like, maybe these murderers aren't so bad? Question mark.
yeah, and she's like beyond beautiful. It's like distracting how pretty that girl was. Another hilarious thing happens to tie in with Texas Chainsaw 3D, where they're like, "Oh, by the way, Mama Sawyer, who's still a crazy cannibal killer, married a rich guy." And so now she's super rich. She still lives in the dilapidated, bone filled Sawyer house, but she's got tons of money to hire good lawyers. Oh my god, was that lawyer the real estate agent? Is that supposed to be the same guy? I just thought about this.
Oh man, I don't think so. I mean, they
Let's
look
say
nothing
yes.
alike, but I don't know if
I
that
mean,
matters.
yeah, nobody cares about that. So yeah, so then the mom is like, "I've come to save my son," and the doctor's like, "No, I'm not gonna let him out because he. I mean, look at you guys, you're all psychopaths." And then the mom's like, "Okay, I have to go to the bathroom," and they're like, "Oh, well, the bathroom's in the middle of the asylum for some reason. Just go by yourself and come
They're
back
like
when you're
hang a
done."
left at the lever that releases all the cages simultaneously and unlocks every door. You can't miss it.
Yeah. So then she like lets him out, but she doesn't go with him. I don't know. It's kind of confusing
Yeah,
as how she
she
lets
like
him
she
out.
like lets everyone she kind of makes it so everyone can escape, but then she just kind of leaves and it's like I hope that worked and then it does.
So then we cut into this. Also, this review is gonna be short, guys. I'm sorry. So
It's
then
there's so little. Although there
we're
is a
at
great part
15 minutes and I'm
because
halfway through the movie.
they like it's like a group of like four convicts kidnap a nurse and escape,
Yeah, it's the
and then
Bonnie and
they end up
Clyde aspect of this movie. Also, I read the director and they were like, "Yeah, we even wanted you guys to think that the girl could have been Leatherface because in the original movie, she Leatherface wears makeup and it's like, yeah, in the original movie, Leatherface is a dude.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
you could have a female Leatherface. You can't have a female Leatherface that's a direct prequel to the original. Doesn't make any
I
sense.
didn't even know that was supposed to be a mystery, honestly, until you brought it up. Like, I honestly thought they were just wasting our time. I didn't know I was
I
supposed
mean,
to be figuring out who it was.
they clearly were because they're like, who could it be? All our names are changed. But yeah, so then they like go into a diner to eat, and then they're like, hey, they're like next to a cop, and they're like, we don't have any money, and the waiter is like, okay, and then like the girl takes out a knife and stabs the cop. Then they take his gun and then they shoot like everyone. It also helps that every single person in Texas doesn't have a gun in the 50s because that's rule. And they see someone, they
Yeah.
see this guy with a gun shooting people, and their line of defense is to just walk towards him slowly, like kind of in an angry face, and get shot in the face. Like that's every single person in the diner tries it, and they all get shot somehow. Somehow they get murdered. So then, like these two characters who aren't related to the Sawyers and have nothing to do with them, just like go from person to person and blow their heads off with a shotgun. And it's like, okay, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's what I was like. This is one of those things where it's like, this is not, this is so disconnected from even the story you're trying to tell. I don't know. It felt like the movie was just like 90% filler.
Yeah, and like they're trying like really hard to be like, look at how gory we are, but gore without any like again Toby Hooper thought that he was making a PG movie at the time, and that's why it's so effective because it's quick, it's clean, and it's like kind of gross how like methodical it is. And even in the remake, that one has gore, but it's always in service of the story. And this is just random gore you're just watching, so it's not like scary because it's just so random that you're like okay. And also
Yeah,
like the
you tune it
characters,
out. It's like I saw this movie
yeah,
3 hours ago. I cannot remember almost a single like death scene. It's
yeah,
so just runs together. Yeah, so diner shootout, they get away. Steven Dorff shows up and is like, "Where are those teens? I'm evil because I'm doing my job of tracking murderers."
I can't like yeah, he's like I'm gonna kill these teenagers, and that makes me the bad guy, even though they just unloaded on a group of defenseless diners.
Yeah, it's very like anything could happen and anyone will do anything because they're all crazy, you know.
Exactly, and
Because
I did
even the
like
sheriff's kind of like I feel like the sheriff at one point kidnaps the nurse
yeah
to use
later
his bait, and she's like, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "Because no one will ever find out." It's like I guess he's a psycho, like he's super crazy.
yeah
It's all
maybe this
nothing. It's
town
just
maybe this town's
people
wrong.
just doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, but there I did like the scene. Okay, so like then the Leatherface tries to escape, but he gets caught by the fucking leader of the pack. He's the leader of the pack, and and they have like a little fight, and then like the guy goes to piss for some reason because it's a terrible horror film with cliches, and then like the big dumb fake Leatherface like hits him over the head and drags him, and like puts his head on a rock, and then like does the American Psycho like squash his head thing. And I thought that that sequence was really well done because it's like it doesn't make any sense once you know that that's not Leatherface, or you like I had assumed that he wasn't Leatherface by that point. So it's just like why is this happening? Like are all these people murderous? Maybe they shouldn't have escaped. um but
Yeah.
it was a good scene cuz like you kind of see like he hits him over the head, and then the guy's like trying to scream but he can't cuz his like whole face is shattered in, and then they like just crush his skull. Like that was good. But like and then
Yeah, I
like
mean that scene would almost be better if it was Leatherface.
yeah,
But
that would have worked a lot better because it makes sense. It's a complete Leatherface kill. So then
yeah.
they get caught
I
by the
did. I
cops. They
actually
kill
did
the
want that
girl.
guy. I knew he wasn't, but I enjoyed that fat little rascal like teen. Like I
Yeah,
was
that
like,
guy
all
was
right.
cool, and that's
Yeah,
why I did like
he
it
would have been
made.
a better Leatherface. Yeah.
He would have been a good Leatherface because you really sympathized with him, and you like because I think one of the reasons that Toby Hooper did it, and one of the reasons that you don't sympathize with Leatherface, even though he is like somewhat challenged in one way or another. They've never specified why, but he is challenged, is
He's clearly
because he
mentally
wears
ill.
someone else's face as his face. But if you took that away and he's just like this guy who hasn't killed anyone, then you would sympathize with him because he's like there's something wrong with his brain and he's like can't relate to anyone, like you're sad about it. So it makes sense. And it would have worked a million times better if that kid had been Leatherface because it would have put you in a I don't know who to agree with because this kid is like nice.
Yeah,
But
and
but he
I don't
has
know.
these and then
It's
like that scene would have been perfect because it'd been like, oh yeah, the kid's nice, but he does have these weird like moments of like
yeah, like
violence.
you don't even know why he did it, and it's like that to me is better than like the real Leatherface story where it's like he was a nice guy who got wounded. It's like,
Yeah, he was a
well,
nice guy and society turned him this way. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
that's so boring. Like Michael Myers and Leatherface are scary because that's just how they are. It just doesn't work in any way. It doesn't play on any of the themes of the original movies. It's kind of boring, like to a point. It does look nice. It
yeah,
probably has some of the best cinematography. I mean, other than the remake probably has the best. I mean, the first one has really good cinematography, but it's good in that it's like chaotic and like kind
yeah.
of
It's
nauseating.
disjointed in the in the sense of like
Where
this. Yeah,
where the
it's
remake looks
effectively ugly.
pretty, yeah,
Right.
and this one looks nice too.
Yeah,
But all right,
that
guys. Well,
connection.
that was our Texas Chainsaw Month. If you go to our podcast after Halloween, you'll see the podcast exclusive where we talk about all of them. So come join us for that. And if not, we'll see you next time on YouTube where we talk about Silver Bullet, or maybe it'll be Silver Bullet. I'll just make it Silver Bullet so this makes sense. So come join us for
What
that.
is? Oh